So hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Secrets of the Viz. Today I have Varun with me to talk about his IronViz submission, which is really interesting because he collects a lot of recipes on his Instagram account, but never really gotten down to cooking a lot of the dishes. So this IronViz entry is also to motivate himself and what is feasible in terms of his schedule and stuff like that. Varun, can you give us a short intro about yourself and how your Tableau journey began?
Yes, absolutely. First of all, thank you for having me. Super excited to talk about my Viz. My Tableau journey essentially began TC21. So it was the COVID time and it was my first year working in analytics. I knew of Tableau and I kind of find a bit fascinating because of the flexibility of the tool. I remember one of my teammates were doing something, placeholders and putting some tooltip icons. And I was like, oh, this is something that I haven't seen in BI tools in general, that you can like manipulate things like that. And then I started to like doing things, following the general trajectory of everybody who's involved in DataFam, I guess, doing the community projects, learning from Andy Kriebel videos and things like that. Eventually got some Viz of the days, and I've been Tableau ambassador for 2 years, and it's been really good, really enriching, really satisfactory journey. You get to learn a lot, you get to explore your creative side, and of course you can convert that passion into your job. So all in all, it's been really great.
Yeah. Some Viz of the day is kind of like an understatement because you have 7 of them. So it proves like your creative and design work is really good. So let's talk a little bit about this. A little bit different from others because I think most people go with the long form visualization, but you opted to go for horizontal view, which I know you have a preference for because it's like reading a book for you.
Right.
Maybe just walk us through a little bit through how you iterate through the different versions.
Actually, I always wanted to do a long form. Even like 3 years ago when I did IronViz, I still wanted to do a long form, but somehow it doesn't feel right to me. I always switch to a horizontal format, maybe because I read a lot. It feels more natural to me to read from left to right than from top to bottom. So I guess that's how it evolved. But yeah, I think it's just preference. I really try hard to make a vertical Viz because it's fun. Everybody does it. But because it feels more natural for me to have a horizontal one, it brings that kind of uniqueness to my Viz, which is just a happy coincidence.
Yeah, but that makes perfect sense. So tell us about the inspiration on this idea. Like, how do you decide on doing this Viz when you knew that the theme was food and drinks?
I generally struggle a lot with IronViz topics. I think a lot of people will relate to that finding the data set is super hard. And because you have to spend a lot of time into it, it's like a month-long effort. You want something that you're passionate about. Otherwise, in the middle of the month, you'll be like, okay, I'm not doing it. I don't feel it. Combining the tool, I needed something very personal. And I needed something I can quickly get my hands on in terms of data. It's a little bit hard getting data for a personal story. I don't write down things or just collect personal data in general. So I landed on, I knew I have all these recipes saved that I really have to cook. It's a personal problem. I still struggle with it, even though I make a dashboard out of it. And I thought, yeah, let's try to first figure out if I can actually extract the data from it. I did like small tests using some AI tools to like see if I can read the data, get it out, format it properly. I think the first week was all about making sure if I can even get this working or not. But the good thing was I didn't have any other idea in my mind. So there was not really a choice. It was like either this work or I don't participate. So good thing it worked.
Yeah, definitely. So you said that you didn't really, not in the habit of collecting personal data, but because your Viz talks about a couple of different things. It starts off with identifying what recipe would work in your schedules and the nutrition that you and your girlfriend would need. There's some personal touch to the data set itself, like the preference for the recipes, what flavors that you like versus your girlfriend. Those data are also, I would say, like you have to manually enter those data in. Yeah.
Right. When I extracted my list, I just gave it to my girlfriend and I'm like, you have 3 weeks to rate each of those recipes. There was like 90 of them. And I think we waited till the last day. I didn't have this chart until the last moment, actually. The last night I was working before the submission. She did it in an hour or something, give me the data set and I just plugged it in. Other than that, there's the schedule, which it's a small data set. It's something that I face in daily life. So it wasn't really too much. I didn't have to think about it too much. Nothing like every day you take a note of something and then you do it every day, every day, every day, every day. I'm not too structured to do that.
I think a lot of us aren't too structured when it comes to IronViz. Your Viz is very clean. I love the color design and this little boxes that you have, kind of like the recipe card. So it's very eye-catching. Earlier on, we were talking about this, right? Like how do you actually, based on the thresholds that you're looking for, like protein thresholds, low calorie threshold, and to streamline from 95 recipes to 16 recipes that you guys are looking at. This was interesting to me because I initially thought that this was all formatted within Tableau itself. And I was trying to think every recipe has different ingredients and different steps. If I were to do that programmatically using calculated fields, how many calculated fields would I actually need to do that? It's really simple, but if you take a look at the data set itself, right, you would see over here, the data set that you have connected to this actually had the formatting done in it already. So it's actually done outside. What I didn't realize was that Tableau actually recognized that line breaks that you have in your
Ah,
data set. And when you
right.
bring it in, it actually still renders it properly. So this is a very cool trick that I didn't know. Because I was creating some vizzes on video games before, and one of the struggles that I had was that game descriptions can be really long. And in order to have that kind of dynamic line breaks and height, it takes quite a bit of calculated field. So now that I know it can be done this way, I can probably try to re-explore.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you try to work it with a mark or a shape, it doesn't work. Tableau doesn't handle wrapping very well, but somehow it works. And I think if you look through the Viz on Tableau side, it's not very complicated except for a couple of charts. All the complexity is the background analytics and the background preparation that I did, like data preparation and things. Otherwise, it's very straightforward. And it was one thing that I was not really confident about because my Viz is not that eye-catching. There's not like a super complicated chart in the front that catches your eye and then just brings you in. It's very simple, but I think it works for IronViz because like the judges are going through it and the devil is in the details here.
I mean, you say that it's not complicated, but you have pretty interesting chart combinations. You have over here kind of like a heat map and a bar chart.
I've actually used this chart before in one of my other dashboards,
Mm.
and I really like it the way it kind of you don't have to read. It's going to be a big string on the label, so this makes it a little bit elegant.
So how long did it take for you to clean the data? Because I was looking through your data set and a lot of it is really well formatted already before you bring it into Tableau.
I did most of the design heavy lifting on the last night, but the biggest thing was the data preparation. And I was mostly focusing on it until at least like the end of third week.
So there was a chart that caught my eye as well, which is this Pareto chart. Basically is a stack area chart and a cumulative line chart that shows you where the 80-20 rule is. Can you
Right.
walk us through a little bit on the calculations behind? Because you have a very unique calculation behind there, which is like the power 1 minus 1 divided by the ingredients.
Right. So newsflash, I am from a math background. I did my undergraduate in mathematics, so it might seem a bit complicated, but Pareto, we use it a lot in analytics world, like 80-20 rule, but essentially it is a distribution, like a bell curve. There's a Pareto curve, and there is actually a formula for it. It looks complicated, but if you search for Pareto distribution on Wikipedia, this is the first formula you will see. What I wanted to show here is that my recipe, my ingredient and recipe relationship does not follow the Pareto principle at all. And that's why it's difficult for me to have small proportion of ingredients in my pantry and I was able to cook a lot of things. But it was not that. So earlier it was the chart was only the area chart.
That's really cool. The other thing that actually caught my eye is you have this analysis that basically tries to make sense of the chaos that you have in terms of the ingredients and the recipe. You have 5 different scores here. You have the frequency, the versatility, the companion, necessity, and co-occurrence. Can you talk us through a little bit on how you actually created all these scores and what are the thought process behind this?
Yeah, it was very iterative, I would say. Initially, when I thought about how am I going to analyze the ingredients, the first thing that comes to mind is frequency, of course, like how many recipes are used. I can get the ones that are used in the most recipes, most number of recipes, and get it locked down. But that brings you like eggs, pepper, onions, or something like that. it's not a good base to have because you cannot cook anything, or you can only cook a selected number of ingredients. It's good for analytics, it makes sense, but in the real world you need something a little bit varied and gives you the spice in the life, right? It helps you cook different kind of things, so you need to have some other things that kind of goes with it. So from that, versatility score kind of come out. Like it should help me cook a few different cuisines. I cannot have just soy sauce in the home. I need some parmesan, I need some olive oil and things like that. Throughout this whole viz, I was always in conversation with Claude, and I was trying to brainstorm with it. It helps me clear up my mind and also suggest some nice ideas. I had a lot of options. You know how AI is, like it gives you thousands of options, but I think these five works very well. It checks all the different kind of areas. Like companionship is important because you don't need an ingredient which is like just sitting by itself, and don't use it in others. But if I had time, I could have made this score a little bit more robust.
I think this is tapping into your math knowledge as well, because I can see all the analysis that is being done in this viz are very driven by statistics, how you look at the distribution of the data. And it's interesting because you can see different slices of the ingredients and recipes that you would never have analyzed them differently. And I really like how you actually flow through all your analysis to actually get to this final portion here, which is apparently a lot of you did shopping lists this year, and everyone had different ways of going around it. That's how versatile Tableau is. But I think your technique is somewhat similar to Heather. You use a string matching parameter. Do you want to walk us through a little bit on how you actually achieve this? Because this is really, really well done.
Thank you. This was done in the dying moments of the IronViz, the last night before I had to submit. I always knew I wanted to do something like this where I build my whole schedule because that is the way this whole viz is going to. But I was not sure how I will achieve it. This could be like done in 14 parameters, if you can see. All this weekday cross lunch and dinner, these are 14 items that you need to select. You can do it with 14 different parameters, and I think that makes it a little bit easier. But I always try to go for an elegant solution if I can. So I landed into this string parameter. Ideally, what it is, you can see in the top right here, is essentially the serial number of each recipe within quotes and like separated by pipe. 36 is the Monday lunch recipe, 32 is the Monday evening recipe, or I think it's the Tuesday lunch recipe. That's how it goes. So this way you can plug in the numbers and take out the numbers based on what's the status of each mark there on the schedule is. I was kind of surprised how straightforward it seemed to me, but you need quotes in the string because 3 can match with 36 and 6 can match with 36. So you want something that you can match only that number. So that's why the quote was there. Pipe is just a separator that you can select any of them. I have one huge calculator where it plugs the different kind of things into there. It's a lot of like left and right calculation because essentially it checks if the place that you're putting the recipe is, it's already selected or not. It just finds out the right place between the two separators where the number should be. And if there's no number, it finds out, okay, that means the recipe is not selected. If there's a number, then that means the recipe is selected. So based on that, it determines if you need to add a recipe or you need to remove a recipe or you don't need to do anything. How it works is the path is my densification parameter. There's 14 elements, and essentially you have to find out the two pipe symbols between which you will put in or remove the recipe number. But you can see that the first one and the last one would have to be handled a little bit differently because it doesn't have a pipe on both sides of it. It's only on the one side. So for 1 and 14, that's like the first and the last one, I have to do a slightly different calculation, but the middle ones I all follow the same kind of pattern.
Yeah, this is a really cool technique, and you can probably put this down in a blog post or something as well, because I'm sure everyone wants to learn how this is being done.
Right. It's a little bit too specific, I think, but if enough people will ask me, I can put it down somewhere because it's interesting. It's not really super hard. Once you realize the pattern, it's rather straightforward to just port.
Awesome. Before we wrap up, what was your favorite cuisine that you usually fall back on, be it cooking at home or going out?
I think I generally go to Chinese or Asian cuisine because it's easy to cook. My girlfriend is Chinese, so she prefers that, and I have to follow her sometimes. But at home, I think with a couple of sauces, a couple of ingredients, it's easy to cook. It's like stir fry, that's it. Indian cuisine, on the other hand, is super hard to make
because of the spice.
and the spices. I don't have all of them still. And
For Chinese cuisine, you only need one thing, which is the MSG.
yeah, I have the MSG. You need like soy sauce, oyster sauce, or vinegar, and that's it. That's all of it.
That's cool. That's cool. So hopefully this visualization has inspired you to cook more at home for your own sake and for your girlfriend's sake as well. Thank you so much for walking us through this entire viz. And I hope everyone learned something from this, and we'll see everyone on the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you.